Welcome into Red's Reality Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Razauskas, bringing you reality as I see it on all things your Cincinnati Reds. My nephew was staying with us for a while, and I've also had a lot of work to do over the last few days. So when I last left you, we had one game left in the Atlanta series and the entire Houston series, and one game last night against the Chicago White Sox. The Cincinnati Reds currently set at 3 games under 500. Arguably, unless my statistics are wrong, so hence the word arguably, but I believe that they are at their lowest record of the season. So the question is, what the heck happened? Because we were doing so well and everybody was feeling so darn good about where things were going. So what the heck happened and what is going on? Well, it can all be summed up really into one question. And that question is regarding the man on the thumbnail for this episode. Why, Tito? Why? You're the Hall of Fame manager. You're the guy who knows more about baseball and his pinky finger than I will ever know in my entire body. You're the guy who led the team to the biggest comeback in postseason history with the 0-4 Boston Red Sox and led the then Cleveland Indians, now the Guardians, to a World Series appearance. You're the guy with well over 600 wins, I think it is, as a major league manager. You know what you're doing. So why then is it me as a fan and those that I talk to in my life that are Reds fans that are asking the question, what are you thinking and why are you making these decisions? You've done things like leave Matt McLain in the 2 spot for way too long when he is struggling, and you only moved him down in the lineup as of last night. You continue to have relievers like Scott Barlow, and now last night, closer de facto for the year so far, Emilio Pagan pitched in innings and in situations where they have not done so all year. And you just continue to, rather than discipline this team and say, this is not the way we do things around here, things are going to change around here, you simply pull a guy aside and you tell him, hey, do better next time. And the do better next time approach simply is not working, and the do better next time approach is crippling this Cincinnati Reds baseball team. That's why we are where we're at. You have Ellie De La Cruz, who, with the exception of finally hitting a bomb to the moon last night against the White Sox, takes far too many pitches, including far too many down the middle, and he's gone from balancing himself and waiting for his pitch to missing pitches that he clearly should be swinging at, while still making base running mistakes in the base running game by being too overly aggressive at times, but at the same time you don't want to handcuff him. So that's what I think you're doing. I think you're not letting Ellie be Ellie and only coming to him and saying something when necessary. So that's part one of the issue. The other issue is that, like I mentioned before with Matt McLain, when guys are struggling, you haven't changed the lineup. You've got 3 catchers who are all hitting the cover off the ball. Use them. Put Austin Wynns at first base again. Put Jose Trevino behind the plate. put Tyler Stevenson at DH, or vice versa. Put Tyler Stevenson behind the plate, put Jose Trevino as DH. Use all your best hitters and don't be so stubborn with the lineup about who you're trying to get in versus who you're not putting in the ball game. And now it's gotten to the point where the pitching staff is getting wasted because of the bullpen mismanagement. If the guy has a good start, like Andrew Abbott had another great start last night, it matters not in the end because the bullpen is overly worked, overly tired, and in the position to not gain the victory. Now, with all that being said, fans, we can't put this all on Tito simply because Tito has only been given what he's been given to work with, and there hasn't been any roster moves to improve the team outside of the signing since the last time I was here of outfielder, first baseman Connor Joe from the Padres, who came over in a trade for minor league pitcher Andrew Moore and cash considerations. But that's literally been the only move that has been made, and that's just not enough to improve a struggling roster who also continues to be plagued by the injury bug because you've got, of course, Tyler Callahan, who went out. You've got Austin Hayes, who just came back, but you've got CES still out. You've got Rhett Lauder still out, even though he is closer to coming back. You've got Wade Miley supposedly at some point going to be ready this year, so he's on the comeback trail. But now you've got another tremendously big key cog in the wheel in TJ Friedl, who has a bone bruise after being hit on hit on the wrist, rather, with a pitch last night, and now he has to swing the bat today, and we don't know how he's going to be until we know how he's going to be and whether or not he has to go on the IL. Now, you did convince management to make the move of letting Blake Dunn go down and figure himself out, and you brought up Reese Hines when Tyler Callahan went down. So you have made bench changes that I think will make the team better by Benson replacing Dunn for right now and Reese Hines taking the roster spot and not worrying about an option. And even though I stand by what I said about I think Reese Hines would benefit more from being an everyday player, right now that's not a position that the Reds are in. So I like where the roster's at in terms of the pieces we have, but we just got to put it all together. And the question of why is just there because it goes back to what I've been talking about this entire time, which is accountability. You've got to have accountability in order to succeed. And that's just where this team is now. So we'll see what happens when hopefully I can come back at you tomorrow to talk about Game 2 of this White Sox series and whether or not we are able to get back on track. Now, the one other topic that I do have to mention today before I can get out of here, and by the way, I didn't mention, but in case you've never seen an episode yet before now, where I cannot cover every game, when I don't do a game by game blow, and this, for whatever reason, is the only Reds podcast that you listen to / watch. Well, first of all, thank you, I am flattered, but I do highly recommend checking out my friends, Jeff Carr, Steven Offenbaker, and Tim Daniel over at Locked On Reds. And I do highly recommend Chatterbox Reds. I do highly recommend The Riverfront. I do highly recommend Power Stacks with Brian Giesenslaw and Charlie Goldsmith. And for just Reds player interviews and insight in general, I do recommend the Gym Day podcast. If you want to know game by game, moment by moment, what this team is doing. And if for any reason, again, it comes up that I am not able to be here. So I did want to say that really quick before we lead into the final topic of today's show, which is that MLB did what we speculated that they might do, and that is that Pete Rose and everyone else who passed away, yes, that's the unexpected element of it, are now eligible to be reinstated for Hall of Fame eligibility. They can now come off the permanently banned list and be inducted into the MLB Hall of Fame. I honestly don't know how to feel about this. As a Reds fan, obviously I know that there's no one more deserving in the history of our game to be a Hall of Famer than Peter Edward Rose is and was. But by the same token, I stand by what I said when we unfortunately had to celebrate Pete's life when we got the news that he had passed away earlier in the off-season, when I said that if MLB did allow Pete to go in, it would feel like self-service. It would feel like Rob Manfred trying to make a name for himself rather than forgiving Pete and making this about Pete's accomplishments. And that's exactly what this is. This is Rob Manfred trying to ensure he goes into the Hall of Fame himself. This is MLB trying to look better as a league than to look at Pete Rose as an individual. And what furthers that statement is, as I mentioned, the surprise part of this was that Shoeless Joe Jackson and everyone else who's ever been on the permanently banned list for Major League Baseball, and thus by subsequent, the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame is now eligible once they passed away. And the league's wording and reasoning behind this was essentially, well, an individual who has passed away and no longer with us cannot harm the game or put a black mark on the game in any way, so that's why we're going to allow them to be eligible. So even in their own statement, they pretty much have admitted that they're only doing this to placate themselves. So while I'm happy for Pete and his accomplishment as the greatest hitter of all time to likely finally be recognized in 2027, or is it 2028? I'm not exactly sure when the next Hall of Fame ballot is. I believe it's 27 because we did get one last year. So if my math is correct, it's 2027. So I am happy that he will most likely be a part of the Hall of Fame for him, his legacy, and his remaining family members. But I imagine that they're feeling what I'm feeling and what all of you who are watching and listening probably are feeling, and that is that it's too little too late. And I just don't get to feel what I should be getting to feel, which is just overwhelming joy about all of this. So, as I always say, let me know what you thought about where the team is, how to fix things, and about Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson, and all of the other Hall of Fame eligible members now in the comment section down below. Or you can hit us up on social media at Reds Reality Pod on both Blue Sky and Twitter/X. You can chat with me over on the Locked on Reds Discord server by going into the Creative Corners section to make sure that you are aware of when the latest episodes go up, in case the YouTube algorithm failed you in that regard by subscribing and turning on your notifications. But please go ahead and do that if you haven't already done so. I'd love to have you here, as I love sharing my Reds baseball knowledge and passionate opinions of my reality with all of you. So you can hit that subscribe button that will be in the middle of your screen, as well as you can check out the previous episode and the episode that YouTube itself recommends the most to you to view right there on your end screen right now. As I, Josh Razauskas, will continue to bring you reality as I see it on all things your Cincinnati Reds.